Let's play a little word association game. When I say the word power, what comes to mind? Is it a superhero with extraordinary powers? Is it the power circulating our homes and keeping our lights on? Is it the absolute power that corrupts absolutely? Or do you just think about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? I think about him all the time. Clearly, one word can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So I gathered 6 different artists of drastically different backgrounds and art forms and asked them to conceptualize the same word: power. Everyone was given 2 weeks to conceptualize and execute their idea. After those 2 weeks were up, it was time for the showcase. I'll just go first. I'll just kick it off. So when I was thinking about power, something that kind of just stuck out to me was to almost take it a completely different route of last episode, which was very serious and very introspective. And I was like, this time I'm gonna have fun with this one. I used to all the time go out in a field with friends, and for fun, we would just pretend to be in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and we would just pretend to have those powers for 3 hours. And I think it's really cool that I have this skill set to now visualize kind of what it would be if I had those powers. I think we'll start with head power spider. I think what I enjoyed about this one, it felt fun to put yourself as Spider-Man, because who doesn't love Spider-Man? This is called a cinematograph, and that one was more of what if I had firepower, but more romantic, intimate setting. And then the last one,
these are so cool!
First of all, so impressed that that's the direction your mind went with power. Like you mentioned, there's a million different interpretations, and that is not one that even crossed my mind.
I love the VR goggles too. I don't know how intentional that was, but this idea that you're in this virtual space and you have power there to create or just have fun was really cool just to see that visualized.
The fire pick, I think, is my favorite. I just think it's a really cool. There's just so much attitude in it.
I was gonna say it reminds me of on Netflix for Christmas time how they have the fireplace.
We just have that on our TV.
Dude, that's so good. This was an interesting word for what I typically do, which I predominantly for this project have been making kind of chill lo-fi beat kind of stuff. And it worked really well with Love last time. And so when I heard power, I was like, how the heck do I make chill study beats feel powerful? I found this website where I could get samples from old video game consoles. And so I was like, oh, power on, power button, got it. And so I started working with these kind of sounds. I said this last time, I like to describe my lo-fi project as kind of an audio candle. We won't miss a super ton with me talking over it just because it's kind of made to be lived around. Once I actually started playing instrumentation, I kind of liked the melancholy feel of this song, which again, I was fighting with power, but when I was a kid, I was homeschooled. And when I would finish my schoolwork, I would find myself sitting at the N64 and just hours would go away and you just kind of melt into it. That still rings true now with the things that I love. And so I kind of liked that there was this lull to it, this kind of I guess melancholy is the word that I kind of liked. And here you can hear this is that one piano I was telling you about, the second one, really kind of guiding this. And then I used this guitar. There's that other keyboard sound. This B section is when you start hearing the light switch. It should be in your right ear. Yeah. That kind of gives an idea. And I think there's just the B section that we come back around to. I decided to do things a little bit differently. I like to try to find, when I'm making these, something that feels nice to kind of sit inside of, and then do that for as long as I can, and then find something that's a shift, but not too much of a shift, so it doesn't feel like two songs happening at once. Because again, it's kind of supposed to just be an additive, not necessarily the thing that you're mostly focused on. But I did like, that's a new snare. It's a different punch. Yeah, it's almost fun. Light switch was really strong there.
I have so much to say. Cooper, that is so cool, so good. There are so many ways that you could have taken this to be really intense and be really like in your face with these video game influences and noises and sound effects. But I really like that to go with your lo-fi theme. It was so organic to take something that we're all familiar with in one way and use it for something else is super cool.
So I'm not someone who knows a lot about music at all, really. So it's cool to see you break down and kind of hear like the different sound effects, the tempos, the instruments that you used to create this whole track, and kind of break down and get into that granular detail. I would have missed like a lot of that stuff if you hadn't walked through it. The compliment that I can give the most is that if I was listening to this track, I would have definitely added it to my lo-fi playlist. I listen to a lot of lo-fi while I'm working. It just helps me like concentrate and kind of focus on whatever I'm working on. So it was an awesome track.
Power could either be like aggressively political or it could be aggressively not. I just was like all over the place. So I just started asking people. I started with people under the age of 10, which was pretty entertaining. The question was, what is power? And one of them said something you use to defeat bad guys. Another one said it's like a ruler. My pregnant friend said it's like the kick of a baby in her womb. And then I asked a middle schooler and he was like, oh, it's work divided by time. And I was like, okay, this is going well. I have nothing more from what I started with. So all that being said, if you guys open my file, and it's the painting of literally an outlet not plugged in. So it's as deep as you want to go with it. This is like the absolute antithesis of power, because power is nothing if it's not plugged in. I started actually thinking about that after I finished the painting, and I was like, whoa, this is kind of hitting me deep. Like this is weird. It was profound to me. Like I was asking this question of like, what is power and why is it significant? And then it occurred to me, like, if we don't understand where our power is coming from, then we're more inclined to abuse it. And this is where it can get kind of convoluted and messy. But like, if your power is coming from privilege and you don't realize that you have privilege, your power can be really devastating to the people around you because you're abusing it.
I think this is beautiful.
Yeah.
I really like this a lot. I love this medium. I love the space that you left. I think that can sometimes be a hard thing just in general creatively, like knowing when to not do something. Because I can't draw or hardly sign my name. And so if I were to try and do this, I'd be like, oh, well, the background is blue. So it's blue everywhere. And I think just like what you didn't do is just as significant as what you did. And I think this is beautiful.
I think something too that stuck with me was like that it does feel very soothing to just like look at, and I love it.
I was just going to say, I mean, everybody interprets it differently, which is what's so cool about art. But I feel like it's just a good reminder even to, like I would have it in my house just because it feels like a good reminder to unplug from even just our electric life or whatever, or, kind of phones, TVs, whatever it is, and just kind of like, I don't know, it kind of invites you in, since it's not a digital medium, to just look at it and then kind of maybe ponder a little bit more. I think it was really great. I love the unfinished kind of rough edges of it. It feels like a sketch, like just kind of like an idea or like a memory or something. It's really cool. So yeah, I thought it would be such a great opportunity to learn a brand new program that I've never learned before.
Yes.
That's insanely complicated. So I was like, yeah, let's just hop into Unreal Engine 5 and learn that in a day and figure out how to, make a cool art thing. You guys have never been in Unreal Engine. It's a 3D software that's used for game development. They use it in The Mandalorian for their virtual backdrop. It's just the coolest program. So I was having way too much fun with that.
So cool.
Dude, this is so... I'm changing my desktop background as we speak. This straight up reminds me of God of War. Like, it looks like it has a story.
It reminds me of like those 6-word stories, you know, that we write in elementary school where it's like, you're kind of telling a story, but they have to figure it out because we don't give all the information. That's like the vibes I'm getting from this, where it's like, I could sit here and look at this all day and be cultivating this mythical legend in my mind. And that's a gift to be able to do that. So super cool.
How do I want to start this? So when I was kind of like processing like what I wanted to do, I knew that it was going to have to do like with something with fashion, because I feel like that's what I like most. And that it was going to be probably a picture as me as the subject. When I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do and thinking about the word power, a couple of things kind of came to mind. The main thing was kind of thinking about the correlation between confidence and power. This idea that I feel like I've always kind of had in my mind of like how fashion affects like your confidence and how that can affect the power that you feel in yourself. We can influence our own behaviors because we do have this like power over our minds and how we kind of see ourselves. So obviously I'm wearing this very bold suit. So it's kind of the concept, like my first thought when I like heard the word was like, okay, power suit. So I had, believe it or not, had this in my closet and was like, okay, it's a perfect opportunity to wear this. And I just went out to public transit and I knew that I really wanted to play with like the motion blur, kind of the way that I like edited the photos. So it felt more like cinematic. So kind of the idea of like romanticizing your life as well. And I also think it's funny because because I'm married a photographer, I've never really been comfortable in front of the camera. So I feel like that's also like another layer for me of like, okay, I'm putting myself in front of the camera willingly. That is all.
I'm glad that you talked about the different dynamic of like being the one in the picture, because I think people think that getting your photo taken is like something you receive, but it's actually it's not. Anybody that is uncomfortable on camera knows there's an expectation of you doing something and giving something, and to be like confident and to use the word powerful on camera is like a huge skill. And I think that that attitude is really captured well in all of these. So like there's like cool like dynamics to talk about with like power, specifically with women's fashion too. My mom, it was a big deal when she was traveling and playing music that she was wearing pants at like Christian concerts in the 90s. And so like there's a lot of layers to this, and I think it's really, really cool.
It's interesting because you talked about the definition of power as being like influencing people, and you talked about it specifically about influencing yourself, but then by capturing that in photos, like I look at this and it's inspiring. Like it's like, oh, I could be powerful. Like it's one of those things where it's like, it's that challenge of almost comparison where it's like, could I do something like that? And then embracing, like, I think about the fact that you were in a public transit area and people probably saw you. Like that takes confidence, that takes power, that takes so much willingness to let go of these fears of what other people think and all of that to create something that's so cool. And then you see the photos and it's like, that was worth every bit of awkwardness that you probably felt. They're so fun. I like them a lot.
Yeah, whatever editing you did, I think turned out really well. I love just like pattern on your suit is like a very visually busy pattern, but then you have that busyness from the subway. So I feel like they play off each other really well. And just the whole color scheme, the poses, like it all just comes together.
It takes an artist to say, here's this word. It's just a word on a page. It's just a word on a Google search. How do I show that? And for you to interpret it and to put it into a visual form, both in a photograph that you thought up, but also what you wear is like your art. You are your canvas, and that takes a skill set and a vision.
So mine is basically called The Power of One Word. I thought about it as like the powerful meaning of a word. So actually I split it up. I didn't want to simply just be like, oh, yes. But also like, oh, no can also be, you can get a powerful reaction from that too. The power of possibly saying yes or no to an engagement. I had no time to render it out. So I just drew it.
The thought behind the power of the word, so different from what other people chose is like what they took as power, but this is like just the weight that a word can have. That is power right there.
I really love this interpretation and like how simple the words yes and no can be. Typically they do like hold like a lot of weight, like depending on like the situation. and like how powerful that is, and like thinking about how a simple word can affect the trajectory of someone's life.
The second part of this whole project is not just seeing what someone creates, but also what goes behind it, how someone processes it. But this is a part of the process. Doing some kind of sketch, something like getting your idea out. You have to put it in front of you sometimes to be like, oh yes, okay, now I see how this would work. Now let me figure out what tools I can do to make it.
Yeah, I think just to add in my 2 cents, like kind of piggybacking off of what Ted said, it's cool to see where you took that in the amount of time that you had. I think just in the illustration that you did conveyed that idea of power in a way that was unexpected, that I didn't think of for this project. So the artwork really spoke for itself and conveyed the idea that you were going for. And I always love to see a good time lapse of someone drawing something and seeing those little changes and tweaks and kind of visualizing that, like your thought process as you're like mid drawing is always special.
Oh man, I am so happy with how that turned out and how drastically different everyone's approach was to power. But I'm curious about how you approach it. When you think of the word power, what comes to mind? Leave a comment down below, and if you want to take it a step further, even create art, I'd love to see how you conceptualize this word. And if you have any suggestions for what our next word should be, hit us with it. See you next time.